Welcome back to my channel. My name is Nefertiti duPont. I'm a board-certified gynecologic oncologist, and I'm passionate about educating women so that we can lead happy and productive lives. And I believe this starts with good health. Please click the subscribe button below to get more tips on how to improve your health. And if you're new to this channel, I'd like to encourage you to subscribe so that I can keep providing you with great content that'll improve your health. Well, today we're going to talk about Kathleen's journey. So September is Ovarian Cancer Month, as well as Gynecologic Cancer Awareness Month. And Kathleen Maxian is the president and founder of the Ovarian Cancer Project in Western New York. She is an ovarian cancer survivor, and she has founded this foundation to be able to help women. Today she's going to share a little bit about her journey, just how she felt when she was diagnosed, what happened, how she navigated the healthcare system. So she's going to give you just some of the experiences that she faced during her cancer journey, and I hope this will be helpful for you. So if that sounds good, please continue on.
And just the nicest person. And he said, "Oh, honey, I think you have ovarian cancer." We talked a little bit. And when I got off the phone with him, I got in touch with you. And
All right, well, I am with Kathleen Maxian. She is the president of the Ovarian Cancer Project that is located in Western New York. She is an ovarian cancer survivor, and she just has had an amazing journey. She was diagnosed with cancer in 2009, and now 2023, she's doing her part in educating women of the world and just, how to diagnose ovarian cancer, how to live with it, and how to survive. And so she's going to share her story with us today. And I'm so excited, Kathleen, for you to be with us today. I love talking with you. I could talk to you all day. So tell us your story and just kind of how this started, what happened, and where you are now.
Yeah, so I had some symptoms of ovarian cancer. I didn't know what the symptoms were, but 2020 hindsight, I definitely had these symptoms, and I had called my gynecologist and said, "Hey, this is going on." And he said, "If this happens for 2 more weeks or so," he said, "I want you to come in and see me." And a couple of weeks later, I went in and saw him, and we did a CA-125 test and an ultrasound. And then he called me, and I like that he called me. A lot of people are like, "Oh, your doctor called you. Wouldn't you rather come into the office?" But I had known him. He's my gynecologist. I had known him for years and years. And he called me and he said, "Oh, honey," he said, "I think you have ovarian cancer."
Did he really say, "Oh, honey"? Did he really say it?
He did. He did. And God love, he's a big teddy bear of a guy and just the nicest person. And he said, "Oh, honey, I think you have ovarian cancer." We talked a little bit. And when I got off the phone with him, I got in touch with you. And I remember our first meeting. And
well, you didn't see me right away, right? You were referred somewhere else. Remember?
I was.
For surgery.
He was. Yeah, that's right. He said to me, "We're going to do the surgery," and I said, "Well, what about a cancer center?" And he said, "Yes, absolutely, a cancer center. I just don't know if you'll get in there." And that's when I made the phone call and actually self-referred. And then this wonderful Dr. duPont walks in the room. And we talked about the surgery. And I have to say, I just want to interject here because I think this is really important. So much of what I've learned has been through my own experience, but also getting really educated about ovarian cancer. And the importance of seeing a gynecologic oncologist like yourself is crucial. We know that women who have their surgeries done by a gynecologist or a different kind of surgeon don't do as well, and are diagnosed with ovarian cancer don't do as well. And so, I was very lucky to be able to have a gynecologic oncologist like yourself who's specially trained in these surgeries and able to do these really big surgeries. And so that was kind of the beginning, right? It's a very scary time when you're first diagnosed. It feels like the world goes on and your world has stopped. And it's incredibly difficult and scary to be diagnosed with any kind of cancer. We hear that word and we're fearful. And I think one of the things that I do now here at the Ovarian Cancer Project is when I do love talking to women who are first diagnosed, because I can really spend a lot of time with them and I can help them understand what the gynecological oncologist just said to them, what's going to be happening, kind of the process once they get their plan, talking to them about side effects and that they're going to get through this. But most of all, right, what we need as a new patient is hope. And I think as the years go on and you call and you talk to someone like me who had ovarian cancer 14 years ago, whew, that's big hope, because we're thinking, I'm going to die and I'm going to die soon. And that's not the case with most ovarian cancer. And most of the women that we work with here is that we have, in fact, I tell the women who we work with here, there's many, many new treatments and things that I didn't have access to, like the PARP inhibitors and some of the new immunotherapies. So there's really, and now we have a new drug for women who are platinum resistant. But let me go back up. I know you want me to tell my story. So do we have like hours? But just I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. One of the things that happened that was very instrumental in me becoming an advocate and starting the Ovarian Cancer Project and doing some of the national work that I do is I came back after my surgery to see you, and you said to me, Kathleen, and I asked for my prognosis, and you told me at the time I had a 20% chance of living for 5 years, which was tough to hear. And I know some people don't like to hear that at all, but I was glad to have that information, right? It kind of put things straight for me, but that's a very personal thing. So after you gave me my prognosis, you said, okay, you're going to be going to see the chemo nurse. But first, your mom mentioned after your surgery that you have a sister who had breast cancer. And I remember I interrupted you. And I put my hand up and I said, oh no, Dr. duPont, our family has had the genetic testing. And while I was talking, you put your head down. And when I was done, you lifted your head back up and you said, we'd like to see if you could get us your sister's paperwork. You knew that something was wrong, that I had a sister who had breast cancer at 40 years of age. And here your new patient was 47 and was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And we know that those cancers are related and that sometimes there's a genetic mutation. We did subsequently find out that my sister at the time wasn't given a complete genetic test. And at that time, there was only one company that did genetic testing of this type, Myriad Genetics. And they gave my sister a test, but it wasn't as comprehensive as our family thought it was. We thought it kind of covered all the bases. And when she went back to her genetic counselor, they said, we're sorry, now that your sister has ovarian cancer, we can give you this test. And I just want, everybody who ever listens to this to know that's not how it is anymore. I became involved at the time. There was a Supreme Court case against Myriad Genetics. They had patented the BRCA genes, which means that this company owned a gene in all of our bodies, your body, my body, everybody in the United States. And they weren't allowing people to do more testing or cascade testing or patch testing, I think they were calling it at the time. So there was a Supreme Court case, and I became involved in that. And that was very instrumental, like I said, in my becoming an advocate. I met some women who were moving mountains, and I was so incredibly impressed by them. And I didn't even know that, women could do those kinds of things coming from a small town. And so I found my voice there as an advocate. And basically that was just to tell my story. So
can I stop you there? Because, I had a patient just yesterday almost asked me the exact same thing. I mean, she came to the emergency room, kind of abdominal pain and bloating. And it looked like she had actually a primary peritoneal cancer. But she'd asked me about prognosis, and actually it's higher now. So it's no longer in the 20s. So it's like kind of 40s, almost 50s now. So it's much higher. So that's great news for all the great drugs that we have.
It is great news. It is great news. And I'm seeing the results of those drugs. And I'm glad that you knew what the new, because I had heard 50, but I didn't realize I was like, wow, that's pretty high. So, it's wonderful.
It's wonderful. And then too, you know what? She had a daughter with breast cancer diagnosed in the 20s. And so the genetic testing has evolved so much. So you talked about Myriad. Now there's many more companies. Actually, there's almost too many companies now doing the genetic testing, but there's a lot more. And so the price has gone down. So I tell patients, it used to be if insurance didn't cover, it's almost like $3,000, but now it's much more affordable under, just $100 or a couple hundred, depending on what company you use and what tests you're doing. And so that's amazing. And then I think the testing is better. We're doing a lot of times panel testing. So we're not just testing for, BRCA1 or BRCA2. And we're also now testing all women. So when we and I met, it was really just high risk women. So women under 50 or women with, maybe 2 family histories or Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry. Now it's everybody, all comers with ovarian cancer, we're testing just because we're learning so much more.
Right. And we need, it's genetic testing back in 2009 seemed so futuristic. And now, working in healthcare, and obviously you've seen this change too, everybody's getting involved. They kind of want to know. This is very telling about our health. And can be very helpful in preventing disease.
Right.
Well.
And that's where we want to go, because I just feel in my own self, I'm just so tired of treating cancer. I want to prevent it. I want no one to have cancer. I mean, I know some things will happen just because we're living longer than we used to, but there's got to be a way we can do more prevention. Okay. All right. I don't want to interrupt you anymore.
Right.
Okay, keep going.
This is really good, because anytime that we can talk about risk factors, right? Like, what's your risk factor? In my family, that was the only cancer that we knew of in our immediate family. And I think another thing that's interesting, and I'm sure you've seen this too, is that I think a lot of people think, oh, this only comes because these are female things, right? Breast and ovaries. Not that men can't get breast cancer, but we think of them as female things. And we think, oh, this will only come from the mother's side. And that's not true, because when we were together, both my parents were alive and they both got tested. And it came from my dad, because we have a lot of cancer in our family. And there's a lot of families that have a lot of cancer, or a lot of heart disease, or whatever that is. And both my mom and dad got tested, and it was on my dad's side of the family. So people were really shocked about that. So we had really great information. Then we were able to take that information as a family and share it with others. That's and hopefully, prevent, again, that prevention. And that's why genetic testing is so important, because we really can prevent. I'm still in a high-risk clinic for breast cancer. So one of the things, because I had ovarian cancer, I didn't opt to have my breast removed. At the time, they didn't think that was a great idea, because ovarian cancer is really, the tough cancer, and we were treating that. So I flip-flop a MRI and a mammogram every 6 months, so that I know I'm very high risk for breast cancer. And if it does happen, we're going to catch it early, right? That's the other thing. We're going to catch it early. So my story, way back, let's see, it was 2013 when the Supreme Court made their final decision. It was very historic. It was a unanimous decision. And you'll see on the wall behind me, there's actually a book. And just so you know, Dr. duPont, our picture is in that book. Yours and mine. Yep. We were doing my story is highlighted in it. And of course, you've been a huge part of that. And so we were doing a radio show. And it's a picture of us in a studio doing a radio show together. So I
haven't seen that. You'll have to send it to me.
Yeah, I will. There's actually a picture on my wall too. I'll get it and send it to you.
Okay.
So I, my treatment was intraperitoneal. And then I went on and I did a vaccine trial. I don't know if you remember that. I did a clinical trial, did a vaccine trial, and it was a safety trial. And unfortunately, my cancer recurred before I finished that trial. And we did more chemotherapy. As a matter of fact, I was on the phone this afternoon with a woman who's doing that same chemotherapy. She's doing Doxil and carboplatin.
Carbodoxil.
Yep.
And there was a shortage of Doxil for the longest time. I'm glad these drug shortages have been so hard for providers, for patients. It's frustrating.
It is extremely frustrating. And I did a news story. One of the local Congressman Higgins' office called me and wanted to know if I would do a story about drug shortages because I was caught in a drug shortage back then. And luckily, for my 6th chemotherapy, Doxil was back. We're manufacturing it again, but I can see it now. I can see it across the country. And it certainly is something that advocates are working on. The Society for Gynecologic Oncology has really taken a lead in this.
Because we just had a carbo shortage. Most places now are stocked again, but that's one of our bread and butter drugs that we use for so many cancers.
It is. And so we need to all work together to make sure that these things don't happen again, because they're very disruptive and they're life-threatening. There's no doubt about it. So I went on, I did the Doxil and the carboplatin, and my cancer came back again. And so at that time, and I don't know if you remember this, but you were chasing me around like, you need to get in here. have a PET scan, and I really didn't want to, and I felt like I was done. And I know that you were very thoughtful about what we were going to do next. And one of the things that you did is you sent me down to New York to see Dr. Chi and Dr. Sonoda. And those two physicians, gynecologic oncologists, have been doing incredible work in lymph node stripping, and that's where my cancer recurred.
And one thing that, you were unique, because it doesn't happen in most women. When your cancer came back, it was really isolated. And so they have published a lot of really good data about, recurrent ovarian cancer in isolated locations. We really can't offer surgery when it's widespread, when it's all over the abdomen.
Right.
But you were just so fortunate that it was just isolated. It hadn't moved anywhere. And so you were like the best candidate for surgery.
Yeah, I've seen some, because it's been 14 years and I've been so out there in the ovarian cancer world, I have seen other patients go to them and do really well. But the one thing that I learned, so if you're a patient listening to this, is that ovarian cancer in lymph nodes is slower growing. So it's not something that it is... for the most part, pressing on an organ, or it seems to be a little bit more benign, if you will, than cancer tumors in the abdomen. So I always caution women, take your time. I know, and I keep thinking back to you trying to get me to come in, because I said to you one time, I said, well, you told me after Christmas that I could come in, and the next thing I knew, I had an appointment on New Year's Eve. I don't know if you remember that at all, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. So I've been very lucky. And people will say to me that I'm very blessed, and I absolutely am. And the one reason why I've really become an advocate for this, we can't depend on luck. We need really, we need a lot more research in ovarian cancer, and we've come a long way. We have absolutely come a long way in the amount of funding that we're getting for research, but I've made it my part of my life that every year we go to Washington. Since COVID, it's been virtual, but every year since 2012 to 2020, I was in Washington walking the halls of Congress, making sure that they understood, with other advocate leaders from around the country, that this disease deserves a lot more funding for research. And, we're making inroads, like you and I have talked, is that we do have some new drugs. We have the PARP inhibitors, which are super important. And I know years ago that you wouldn't have hesitated to put me on that drug. So, right now I don't need it. I've been lucky enough not to need it, but I've seen women on this drug since 2014 when it came out, and they had recurred multiple times. It's like a miracle. It's not working for everyone, but in the world of ovarian cancer, where we hadn't had a new drug since the war on cancer began, right? And then in December 2014, we get a Liparab. That's a big deal, right? I know one of the other.
No, we're able to make it more personal too. So we're doing a lot more tumor testing, genetic testing to see what works for you, because not everything is going to work for every patient. So we're trying to tailor cancer treatment to the individual. And we're getting better at it, but you're right, we need more research. Definitely need more research.
Right. A lot more research. We need women to participate in clinical trials. And that's we help people do that here, find the right trial for the patient. And I'm a big advocate. I will say, even though I'm a research advocate and I believe in clinical trials, I also know from the patient perspective, what it's like. I mean, there's a part of it that's altruistic, but there's another part where, women want to live. So I say to women, the time when you have a recurrence, the time for a second opinion, get a second opinion, talk with a researcher, see what's out there, go to the different advocacy organizations that are around the country and have them help. There's some free assistance with finding clinical trials. And then really, get your head into it. And if you can't do that, if you feel as though you don't have the acuity to do that, I certainly didn't. I went back and had to take some remedial science. But there'll be people in your family or your doctor can help you do this. It's really important. And this is where some of the new treatments are too, which is great.
Yeah, exactly right. That is exactly right. Well, thank you, Kathleen. It's just so wonderful hearing your journey and just how you got started. I know it's going to help women that listen to this and be just inspirational for them. You're just an inspiration to me, and I'm so grateful you've found your purpose and you're really walking in that purpose. I think that's the most important thing, because you're fulfilled and you're helping everyone.
Yeah, and you were a big part of that. I don't know if you know, but you told me, you said you have to have a purpose. And it was scary because at the time I wasn't working, but boy, this is definitely a purpose. It is my passion. I feel as though that if there's anything that I can ever do for any woman who has ovarian cancer, I will do that. And I certainly owe you an awful lot. It was a good surgery and some good treatment, and I'm very blessed, been lucky. And just want to give back.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is so wonderful. So I know the women watching are just going to be inspired. Thank you so very much for being with me today. And I'm just so grateful to be walking with you in that journey. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you for watching. Today, Kathleen Maxiam talked about her journey. I know that it's going to be uplifting and inspirational to you. I enjoy hearing it. I've heard it multiple times, and I'm just never amazed at how well she's done over all these years. And if you haven't looked at her foundation, it's Ovarian Cancer Project. We'll put the link in the description box below so that you can check out her foundation. And I think she shares her story also on her website. Don't forget to press the subscribe button below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with more health tips that'll help you reclaim your life. Thank you for watching.